Javid said, what shocked me the most was when I was told that the NHS waiting list is going to be a lot worse before it gets better. It's gone up from 3.5 million to 5.3 million as of today. And I said to officials, so what do you mean a lot worse? Thinking maybe it goes from 5.3 million to 6 million or 7 million. They said, no, it's going to go up by millions. It could go up as high as 13 million. Hearing that figure of 13 million is absolutely focused my mind. It's going to be one of my top priorities to deal with because we can't have that. So basically, as I say, this waiting list situation has come about as a direct result of lockdown policy and what has been done to the NHS in the last 14 or 15 months. So if we just put this together and look at the government media narrative, they are saying social distancing and mask wearing has made our immune systems forget about other respiratory illnesses because COVID has meant that influenza has disappeared. COVID has meant that RSV has disappeared, but they're coming back with a vengeance this year. And because we have been social distancing, Patrick, and wearing masks, our immune systems have forgotten, just magically forgotten about these other things, which are going to come back and kill us this winter. Influenza and RSV are resurgent, resulting in a triple whammy this winter. Everyone will die, be afraid. Well, if anyone dies this year, Patrick, as a result of RSV, influenza, COVID-19, these are lockdown deaths. These are deaths caused by the fact that the NHS has a waiting list which is only going up, that people are not getting treatment for the acute problems that they are suffering from. People are not getting treatment for the mental health problems that they're suffering from. And these things are causing bigger problems than COVID ever did. And that is being ignored because everybody's focus is on COVID, on influenza, and on RSV. And none of these things is going to hit us any harder this year than any other year. What is going to hit us hard is the fact that there is no healthcare available for anyone.
Yeah, COVID tricked the flu, it tricked RSV to not show up the last winter, but the viruses are intelligent and they've adapted. They've gained new functions, Mike. So, but you're right, Mike. So save the NHS. Remember that was the clarion call. Save the NHS. And what did they do? They destroyed the NHS. If you have a 13 million waiting list, which by the growth of that stat looks like it's likely to happen. If it hasn't happened already, by the way, and
Right.
they're actually underreporting right now.
Right.
That's the end of the NHS as any kind of functional national health system. And will take years to catch up, maybe what, 5, 6 years?
Well, it can
Well,
never catch up
some
for as long
people-
as they maintain these policies.
Some people don't have 5, 6 years for them to get their act together.
Right.
And this is the great work of the government up to this point, Mike. So the winter, they've throttled NHS services. That's the number one problem with this government policy. So you're absolutely correct. They've gamed the pandemic, Mike. They've created a situation where they have another crisis waiting on a silver platter, ready to be served this winter to use as justification for more draconian policies. Again, save the NHS, clap for the carers, whatever. This is the same script being rerun again, and it's government policy. That's the source of everybody's problems. It's not a coronavirus, it is government policy from day one. Look at the statistical breakdown, look at the risk with regards to who's really at risk. The average age of a COVID death, tracking perfectly with life expectancy, tracking perfectly. So who's the problem? Is it a coronavirus or is it the government policy?
Well, I'm arguing it's the government policy now. Of course, last year they built Nightingale hospitals, Patrick, in order to take the load off the NHS. Those were never used. And part of the reason they were never used was the alleged NHS staffing crisis. But of course, in the meantime, we've had staff leaving the NHS because they don't like the policies that have come in as a result of the COVID reorientation. But we haven't seen, right, we've seen this war footing narrative, we've seen this war footing initiative to produce vaccines, but we haven't seen any similar reaction from the government to solve the staffing crisis. So there's no possibility of the Nightingale hospitals being used this year if there's a problem with the NHS. But what is the solution? Can we imagine what the solution might be that's going to be offered? Well, let me tell you what it is. Moderna is planning a triple vaccine targeting flu, COVID, and RSV. Just by coincidence, they're building off their fantastic success for COVID-19 vaccine, and they're going to sell the world a triple vaccine targeting flu, COVID, and RSV just absolutely coincidental it happens to be those particular viruses.
Do you think it'll be emergency use authorization again, Mike, or do you think they'll do the proper due process on developing that vaccine and testing it, doing observations and follow-ups and clinical studies for 5 to 6, 7 years?
I think that the emergency use authorization was used to shoe in the first raft of get past the first hump. Since that point, there's basically been no problem about getting updates to vaccines without even getting emergency use. They're just throwing them out there. So I don't.
The regulators like the matador. If you watch Portuguese bullfighting, which I'm an avid fan of, that's how our regulators operate with the pharmaceutical industry.
Right.
So just watch the Portuguese bullfighting and you save all the technical jargon.
Okay, so lots of people have noticed this particular contract and have been sending it to us, so I thought we better mention it. This is an NHS framework agreement for the supply of direct oral anticoagulants for the NHS in England. Now, a framework agreement gets a value of money. They won't necessarily spend all the money on the actual procurement once it gets into full swing. So it's a sort of up to amount, but nonetheless, the amount of money that we're talking about here is absolutely staggering. So over the next 3.5 years, they intend to spend £3.1 billion on anticoagulants. Now, we, the UK column, me, Ian Davis, have searched the Contracts Finder database for similar, because direct oral anticoagulants are used by the NHS at the moment. About 80% of people that need some kind of blood thinner are using DOACs. So there obviously is a procurement process in place at this point in time, but we can't find any previous contract that's anything like this scale on the database. Now, I'm going to put the caveat on that the search engine on the Contracts Finder database is not very good. And so I'm quite happy to say that it may be because it's just rubbish that we can't find them, but nonetheless, we can't find them. We find the timing of this very interesting and the scale of it absolutely fascinating, because despite the fact the NHS claims that, on its long-term plan, it's wanting to deal with various cardiovascular problems that might require these kinds of drugs. I'm not clear that there are cardiovascular problems of the scale that require this. I could be wrong, and if anybody thinks I am wrong, then please let me know. So the question is, why are they doing it? Obviously, people are suggesting that there's some kind of link between this contract and the vaccine rollout and the blood clotting issue. I can't say whether that's true for sure, but certainly it's something to think about, and perhaps we might put Doctors for COVID Ethics on screen at this point and their latest letter to physicians, 4 new scientific discoveries regarding the safety and efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines. Discovery number 1, SARS-CoV-2 spike protein circulates shortly after vaccination, and they make the point that the spike protein molecules were produced within cells that are in contact with the bloodstream and released into circulation. That means A, the immune system will attack those cells, and B, the circulating spike protein molecules will activate thrombocytes. Both effects promote blood clotting. This explains why many clotting related adverse reactions, stroke, heart attack, venous thrombosis, that are being reported after vaccination. So I don't know for sure whether that's part of the reason for this particular procurement program, but I think that's a question that needs to be asked.
Yeah, and that paper is important. If people go to Doctors for COVID Ethics, there's 4 research papers,
Yes.
Very accurate and hard-hitting new research, and we're told there's a 5th paper that's also coming out this week as well. So Mike, there's just a barrage of evidence there to not just suggest, but to point to a very real problem about a product that has been rolled out into the public on a mass scale and has not been tested properly, not even in the medium term, forget about the long term. And so all the details of that are on that Doctors for COVID Ethics article, which you can find online.
Now, speaking of Doctors for COVID Ethics, we've got a very important announcement to make on Monday's program with respect to Doctors for COVID Ethics. So please pay attention to Monday's program for an announcement. It's going to be very, very interesting. But if you like what the UK column does and you would like to support us, then please head over to ukcolumn.org/community and there are options for us to join us there, and that help would be very much appreciated and needed. And also just join in with the community and get yourselves organized. And also, if you like our stuff on the various platforms, do share it as widely as possible. That'd be very much appreciated.
Especially on the video sharing platforms as well, Mike.
Yes.
And there's a lot of activity now building up on some of these other platforms. So we're really happy, encouraged by the amount of engagement on Odyssey, brand new Tube, and Rumble as well.
Yes. And
So-
where does that take us, Patrick? It
Well-
takes us back to T-shirts.
Well, well, we've got a few left. Loving the old normal. This is the it's kind of an unorthodox protest shirt, Mike, as protest shirt go, but people seem to like it. This isn't just a T-shirt; it's turning into a movement, Mike. There's so many people that have grabbed these, and a lot of people will be wearing this at the event on Saturday or at the end of August as well, I'm sure, or wherever your local event is. But loving the old normal here, chocolate brown. Go to the UK Column shop, community shop there. You can get this, pick up one of these. Limited supplies, Mike. We're in our last round right now of these T-shirts, and they won't be available on the UK Column shop after that. We're all essential on the back. Everybody's essential, and we love the old normal. We want to get the old normal back. The old normal is not perfect, Mike. It needs to be improved, but it's better than the new normal that Klaus Schwab is selling and the great resetters at Davos. So pick up one of those if you want to start a conversation in your community.
Yes, absolutely. And that brings us on to tomorrow.
Tomorrow, there's a big event planned in London. Now, this is according to the organizers here, this is not a march. This will be a, quote, static rally. It means it'll be in one place and they won't be going through central London like in past events. So it's going to be a very different sort of picnic in the park. We're told there's going to be some speakers there. So it's going to be a very interesting gathering, different from the past ones. We'll see where it's going to be. The locations will be announced at the last minute here. Just go, these are the details to the Telegram group here. But if you're linked up with any of the main activist groups there that are promoting these freedom rallies, you'll find out the details of this event, sure enough, or from your friends on the grapevine. But
and there's a Telegram channel on that slide there.
London Official Worldwide Rally. Yeah, that's the general one. So I'm not sure about the details. No one knows quite where the location is yet, but that'll come out probably this evening or something, maybe tomorrow morning for some people.
Okay, so where does that take us?
Israel, Mike. Just a quick preview here. This story is interesting. On the Pfizer shot, the vaccine given to nearly all Israelis, well, not quite all, but quite a large percentage, maybe the largest in the world, is now just 39% effective against, quote, infections against COVID, while being only 41% effective in preventing symptomatic COVID-19, according to new stats from the Israeli Ministry of Health. Now, the question begs the question, Mike, does the virus behave differently in Israel, or does the vaccine behave differently with Israelis than in the rest of the world? Well, the answer probably is no, but the way that people are doing and punting around their scientific clinical studies, especially the pharmaceutical industry, you have to ask these questions here. And there's one of the news sources, Times of Israel, UK data. Israeli UK data offer mixed signals on vaccines' potency against the feared Delta variant.
Yes.
Okay, so you'll be talking more about this in detail, hopefully on Monday.
Yes.
You're going to do a proper analysis looking at the data with regards to efficacy, 95% effective. Where do they get that figure?
Well, the Times of Israel saying there Israeli and UK data offer mixed signals. In fact, the UK data is probably closer to the Israeli data than the Times of Israel is suggesting there. But we'll, as you say, we will have more details on Monday. But sticking with Israel, Patrick, you'll be glad to know that Oramed Pharmaceuticals is rushing into the breach, because we know that some people are hesitant to have an actual jab in their arms. And it's much more convenient just to swallow a little pill. So they have decided they are going to launch an oral version of the COVID-19 vaccine. It's going to be what they call a game changer in countries with a low immunization rate. So this Oramed Pharmaceuticals, based in Jerusalem, they've received approval from the Tel Aviv Medical Center to start a clinical trial on 24 unvaccinated volunteers for a single dose capsule version of the vaccine. They announced in March that they'd been testing the pill on pigs and that they had produced antibodies. So that's really amazing.